Welcome to our discussion on product costing and cost accumulation in a batch production environment. So for this module and discussion video, we will look at the role of product and service costing in manufacturing and non-manufacturing firms. We try to explain the flow of cost through the manufacturing accounts used in product costing. We distinguish job order and process costing as a review. We compute the predetermined overhead rate, explain the use of job order costing for job shop and batch production environments. We look at the journal entries to record the cost of direct material, labor, overhead in job order costing system. We prepare the cost of goods manufactured, cost of goods sold, and an income statement for a manufacturing business. We look at the two-stage allocation process used to assign manufacturing overhead costs to production jobs. We describe the process of project costing used in service industry firms and non-profit organizations. So under the course updates in managerial accounting, job order costing and product costing is important because these are the new trends in accounting for cost in a manufacturing company. So, kailangan natin i-emphasize ito. So, more or less, under your cost accounting subject before, ay nadaanan na itong job order and product costing concepts. But we look at this as essential as it should be taught in the course updates in managerial accounting because in practice ito talaga yung ginagamit the under the assumption that an accountant will be working in a manufacturing company. Okay, let's proceed. So a product costing system is a system that accumulates costs incurred in a production process and assigns these costs to the organization's final products. The costs are needed for a variety of purposes, either in financial, managerial, and cost management purposes. So in financial accounting, we look at product costs needed so that we will be able to value inventory at its most reliable measure. While in its use in managerial accounting because it will aid managers in planning and providing data for decision making. Next, it is used in cost management analysis because it is hard to imagine how management can control or reduce production costs if the management does not have a clear idea of how much it costs to make its product. So that is basic. We need to assign costs for a particular product because we look at efficiency. The management will look at how it can control costs. Okay. According to macros, we recognize that our key competitors were overseas. We realized that in order to compete, we had to be extremely cost conscious. So under our course, yung updates in managerial accounting, our orientation here is that we already know the basics of managerial accounting. Kaya yung subject natin ay updates na lamang. So the assumption on our discussion is that we know the basics of cost accounting, we know the basics of management accounting, and then we just incorporate kung ano yung mga updates at trends in the market today or in the practice today, in the industry today. So kung may mga mababanggit na mga basic concepts that will not be really defined, that will not be really explained on a basic level, because our orientation here is that how are we able to use this uh, yung mga basic management accounting information in the application in the business. Ganun ang orientation natin in this course. Kaya yung discussion natin will dwell on looking at several companies using this particular costing systems and how are we able to use this uh, when we assume the management accounting post in the future. Okay, we look at the product costing. According to Quest, the closer we get to the client physically, the more likely it is that we're going to have an opportunity to participate in what's going on in the business. The more remote you are from where the business decision makers are, the less likely they are to think about you. So that is true. In managerial accounting, uh, a management accountant must be well-versed. Dapat alam niya kung anong nangyayari on the operations para makapagbigay siya ng qualified and reliable consultancy work to the company. Okay, let's look at the product costing in non-manufacturing firms. The need for product cost is not limited to manufacturing firms. We know under manufacturing firms, paano tayo mag-assign ng product cost? We will look at our direct materials, we look at our labor requirements, and we look at our overhead costs. Yung overhead cost na yan, i-discuss natin later kasi meron pa yung actual costing and then the normal costing. So, pwede rin siyang gamitin under non-manufacturing firms. The merchandising companies include the cost of buying and transporting merchandise in their product costs. Producers of inventoriable goods such as mining products, petroleum, and agricultural products also require the cost of producing their goods. The role of product cost in these companies is identical to that in manufacturing firms, but ang pinagkaiba lang is that in non-manufacturing firms, yung mismong product ay nabibili na nila at its final uh, state, yung final inventory value. But on the manufacturing firms, we purchase materials at its raw state and then we convert it until uh, we make it into a finished goods inventory. For example, the pineapples grown and sold by Dole are inventoried and at their product cost until they are sold. Then the product cost becomes cost of goods sold expense. Okay. Okay. Now we look at the flow of costs as a review in manufacturing firms. So Exhibit 3-1 illustrates the cost flow for manufacturing accounts. So we already have identified this in the previous uh, in the undergrad courses. The first step would be the raw materials inventory. The raw materials inventory will be placed in process, and then once you place it in process, um, this will form part of the work in process inventory. The direct labor costs naman are the number of workers in the factory that is directly um, involved in the production of a particular product, yung mismong product ng manufacturing company na yan. And then the manufacturing overhead will be the indirect cost. Once the work in process is 100% completed, it will be transferred to your finished goods inventory. And when the finished goods inventory now is sold, it will be transferred in the account of your cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold is an expense. Although it is more descriptive, the term cost of goods sold expense is not used as much in practice as a simpler term cost of goods sold is used. So wala kang masyadong makikita cost of goods sold expense because we uh, we simplify. Kasi when we say cost of goods sold, uh, it already mean it is a cost or it is an expense of the items sold. Kaya wala kang masyadong makikitang cost of goods sold expense because sometimes uh, madali sa atin tingnan ang account title by looking at whether it is an expense, whether it is a revenue, but cost of goods sold is an exception. So we look at cost of goods sold as an expense, and once it is the cost of goods sold, uh, the cost of goods sold now will then be close to your income. The expense will be closed into the income summary. Kaya nga on in the presentation of the income statement of a manufacturing company, we'll look at sales minus cost of goods sold and among others, operating expenses and among others. So cost of goods sold is a separate item of expense. So are we still are we gonna dwell on how cost of goods sold will be computed? No, because that is a basic concept under managerial accounting. We will not be looking at how uh, the cost of goods manufactured, cost of goods sold are computed, because that is a basic management accounting information. So you can use this reference as you go over a review on how we compute for that. Okay? Just a quick review, di ba? Total manufacturing cost, which is composed of your direct material, direct labor, and then your manufacturing overhead, the total manufacturing cost na yon. Then you add your work in process beginning, and then you deduct your work in process ending, then you get your cost of goods manufactured. Your cost of goods manufactured, you add your finished goods beginning, and then you deduct your finished goods ending, you get your cost of goods sold. So dapat na tatandaan mo na 'yon. Because in the board, when the cost of goods manufactured, cost of goods sold has been asked, alam mo na kung paano natin i-squeeze yung items na yon, given yung particular data na ibibigay sa'yo. Kung ibibigay lang sa'yo is your your product cost, your total manufacturing cost, dapat alam mo natin i-squeeze. Pag binigyan ka lang ng beginning inventories, dapat alam natin i-squeeze yung mga items. Okay, now let's go with the job order costing as we distinguish this with process costing. Okay, job order costing is used by the companies with job shop operations or batch production operations. In the job shop environment, products are manufactured in very low volumes or one at a time. Kaya nga siya job order costing. Once the order has been placed, tsaka lang siya normaling ginagawa. Yun, kaya nga ang orientation when we look at job order costing, the manufacturing is in very low volumes or paisa-isa or one at a time. Ano mga example niyan? For example, the custom house building, aircraft manufacturing, okay, machining operations. In batch production environment, however, multiple products are produced in batches of relatively small quantities. For example, furniture manufacturing, printing, agricultural equipment, pleasure boat production. Okay? Okay, in job order costing, each distinct batch of production is called a job or a job order. The cost accounting procedures are designed to assign cost to each job. Then the costs assigned to each job are averaged over the units of production in the job to obtain an average cost per unit. So we look at our example, job A27 and job B39. So meron na naka-assign dyan, direct material, labor, overhead. This will be your total manufacturing cost for that particular job. Okay, ang sabi dito, the cost per campaign poster is 0.5 per poster, 500 divided by 1,000 posters. And the cost per wedding invitation is 100 divided by 100 invitations. Procedures similar to those used in job order costing also are used in many service industry firms, although these firms have no work in process and finished goods inventories. So how do we compute for this? Normally yan, on a particular problem, sasabihin natin kung ilang items ang kailangan nating ang requirement for direct material for a particular job. For direct labor naman, sasabihin din. For example, worker 1 is assigned in job number A27. In indirect cost naman, just like the manufacturing overhead, normally yan ay merong assignment ng cost at in the most normal cases ay merong overhead that is applicable for the entire batch production, and then i-assign lang natin or i-divide natin according to the number of jobs. Merong mga problems however na yung mismong overhead ay i-apply on a particular overhead rate per job. So merong mga ganong problem na hindi lang siya basta i-total yung overhead tas i-divide lang sa number of jobs. Meron yung cases that a particular overhead rate is use on a particular job. So bakit mayroong mga ganong special cases is because uh, of the internal policies of the company. So na-experience ng company that this job uh, is really the one that is incurring cost. So siya yung job na talagang magastos on a particular uh, item of cost. So kailangan nating i-assign yun reliably para ma-measure natin talaga yung performance per job or per job order. Okay? According to Micros, now part of the NXP Semicon, we have to be the best in cost throughout the world. And as management accountants, we also have to be the best in accounting for the cost because our decision on assigning cost on a particular item will have a great impact on the decisions to be made by the top management. Kaya natin siya ulit-ulit na inaaral. Okay, under the concept of process costing, is used by most companies involved in production of large numbers of identical units. So, mas marami ang gumagamit nito dahil normally ang mga factory manufacturing firms na yan ay nagpo-produce siya ng large volume or large number of items in identical state. Kumbaga pare-parehas. For example, okay, chemicals, microchips, gasoline, beer, fertilizer, textiles, processed food, and among others. The process costing accumulates all the production costs for a large number of units of output, and then these costs are averaged over all of the units. So a detailed discussion on process costing will be on a separate separate module or separate chapter. Okay. Okay, the use of the job cost record. Okay, let's look at okay. These are the forms used in job order costing. So, kanina yung job order cost form, this already have been introduced to you under your cost accounting. This is the material requisition form, which details the items that are needed to be used in the production. Okay, as an update, in managerial accounting, we look at supply chain management and the material requirements planning because these are the trends now. So, dito tayo magpo-focus. An organization supply chain refers to the flow. Ano ba itong supply chain? Ito yung flow of all goods, services, and information into and out of the organization. Papunta at palabas ng organization. Okay, let's take our focus company, Adirondack Outfitters, as an example. So the company is supplying goods, services, and information to Adirondack, and then we proceed to Adirondack Outfitters, and then the Adirondack will forward it or sell it to its customers or retailers that sell the company's canoes and boats. So the Adirondack Outfitters is involved in the production of canoes and boats. So a supply chain often includes many companies and other organizations. Supply chain management means proactively working with some or all of the organizations in the company's supply chain to improve service or to manage or reduce costs. So basically, what does a supply chain means? This only means that this is the management of the inputs that we need, and then the conversion of it into an output that we provide to our customers. So input, we need ang ating katransaction dyan ay ating mga suppliers or mga outside parties, and then ang output naman natin will be uh, will be for the benefit of our customers. So why do we need to study supply chain management? Because of the competition, because of the limited number of suppliers, we have to get the best suppliers with the least possible cost. Kaya nga gumagawa tayo ng uh, kaya nga ang terminologist dyan is the proactively working because this is maintaining a good relationship with all our suppliers. Dahil kung hindi natin ma-maintain ang good relationship with our suppliers, hindi natin ma-achieve yung quality items, hindi natin ma-achieve yung timely delivery of our output. Next, the materials requirement planning. This is essentially the same as supply chain management, but now we look at our materials as an input. Material requirement. Kaya nga material requirement planning, we proactively look at our material requirement para hindi maapektuhan yung ating operations in the future. Because kung wala tayong material, may stop ang entire operations ng ating manufacturing firm. So yan lang ang sinasabi under the material requirement planning system. So the MRP systems, which are generally computerized, include files that list all the component parts and materials in inventory and all of the parts and materials needed in each stage of the production process. So kailangan nating ma-identify yung mga items na that are falling below our minimum so that makapag-place tayo agad ng reorder. Okay? Okay, the direct labor cost, the manufacturing overhead cost, okay? We will discuss more of supply chain management on the succeeding video. Please continue.